Hi, I'm Chap Bettis, author of The Disciple Making Parent, and this is my audio blog, where I read some of my blog posts in audio format for your convenience. Well, in today's episode, we're going to be thinking about sharing our faith, and this blog post is 12 questions to deepen your evangelistic conversations. It really comes out of Proverbs 20, verse 5, where it says, "The purposes of a man's heart are deep waters, but a man of understanding draws out those purposes." In Evangelism for the Tongue-Tied, which is a previous book I wrote that at this point is out of print, I suggested that in order to share our faith, we should start by praying for open doors and being genuine as we go about our day. The third key is to transition to spiritual things using questions. The question that works best is, what are your spiritual beliefs? And after asking that question, you will immediately be involved in a conversation at a deeper level. But after this other person answers that question, we may like to move on to the fourth step of talking about Jesus. But we may sense it's not time. How do we continue having an enjoyable, informative conversation? The answer is by resting in the question stage and continuing to ask more good questions. But the tongue-tied Christian needs to have some prepared questions. What are some? Well, the following is a list of different questions that allow you to continue to probe a person's belief while having an enjoyable conversation. And most of these are not original. They come from a variety of sources, including Bill Fay, Mark Middleberg, Dr. James Kennedy, and my friend Tim Zulker. So what are some questions we can ask? First, what are your spiritual beliefs? We've talked about this already. This is the question that moves us from religion in a conversation to a person's spiritual belief. It works every time. What are your spiritual beliefs? Number two, to you, who is Jesus? What do you think was the point of his life and his teachings? This is a great question to move from weird beliefs or religious beliefs to the person of Jesus. So number two, to you, who is Jesus? What do you think was the point of his life and teachings? Number three, when Jesus said, fill in the blank, what do you think he meant? I love this question because it moves the conversation back to Jesus and encourages them to interpret his words. So, for example, you might say, when Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes to the Father except through me, what do you think he meant? That's John 14:6. Or when Jesus said, if you do not believe I'm the one I claim to be, you'll die in your sins, John 8:24, what do you think he meant? Or when Jesus said, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. That's Matthew 7:13 or 14. When Jesus said that, what do you think he meant? So that's the third question. When Jesus said, fill in the blank, what do you think he meant? Number four, what do you think happens after we die? And why do you think that? Number five, have you ever had some form of personal encounter with God? Number five, have you ever had some form of personal encounter with God? Number six, how does a fill in the blank get saved? This is a really helpful question when encountering someone from another religion. And rather than panic like I used to do and try to remember, what do Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses or Hindus believe? Well, now I'm getting them to tell me. So how does a Mormon get saved? How does a Jehovah's Witness get saved? How does a Hindu get saved? How does a Muslim get saved? Number six. Number seven, if you could sit with Jesus and ask him anything, what would you ask him and why? If you could sit with Jesus, like over a cup of coffee, if you could ask him anything, what would you ask him and why? Number eight, if what you were believing were not true, would you want to know? This is an excellent question towards the end of the conversation to move you towards the gospel and really to see if they're open to the things of God. If what you were believing were not true, would you want to know? And then some good clarifying questions are, why do you think that? Or number 10, what do you mean by that? So as they're talking with us, we want to make sure that we encourage them to define their terms. So what do you mean by that? And then also just, why do you think that? What are the reasons? And of course, the evangelism explosion questions developed by Dr. James Kennedy are also helpful. Number 11, have you come to the place in your spiritual life where you know for certain that if you were to die today, you would go to heaven? Have you come to the place in your spiritual life where you know for certain that if you were to die today, you would go to heaven? And number 12, suppose you were to die today and stand before God, and he were to say, why should I let you into my heaven? What would you say? Suppose you were to die today and stand before God, and he were to say, why should I let you into my heaven? What would you say? Any of these 12 questions are good questions to ask at the third stage of talking about Jesus. Use whichever question seems appropriate to you in a spirit of inquiry and fun. Remember, a man or woman of understanding draws the other person out. Well, thank you for listening to the Disciple Making Parent audio blog. You can visit our website to find more resources at thedisciplemakingparent.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please consider telling someone else about the show. And would you leave us a rating or a review? Believe it or not, both of those small things help out a lot. They help others find this audio blog. Thanks for listening.